If you are a new driver in the UK, one phone in your hand can do more than get you a fine. It can wipe out the full license you just earned. That is why this story goes viral so fast. It sounds extreme, but the legal core is real, and every new driver should understand it clearly. The short version is simple. If you passed your driving test within the last 2 years, and you reach 6 penalty points, your full license can be revoked. That rule comes from the Road Traffic Act rules for new drivers, and it hits much harder than many people expect. For an experienced driver, 6 points are serious. For a new driver, 6 points can end the full license and send that person back to provisional status. That means this is not just a story about being careful with a phone. It is a story about how one mistake can reset the whole license process. And the reason the warning feels so sharp is that a handheld mobile phone offense can carry exactly the 6 points that matter most. In Great Britain, holding and using a handheld phone or similar device while driving usually carries a fixed penalty of £200 and 6 penalty points. That 6-point number is the key. For a new driver, it can be enough on its own to trigger license revocation. So yes, the consequence people fear is real. But to understand it properly, we need to separate solid law from dramatic internet wording. Let us start with the part that is absolutely true. Government guidance says a license will be cancelled or revoked if a new driver gets 6 or more penalty points within 2 years of passing. And points picked up earlier on a provisional license can also count if they are still live, and push the total to 6 after the full test is passed. That means the 2-year period is not a casual warning stage. It is a probationary window where the cost of points is especially high. If revocation happens, the driver does not just say sorry and move on. They must apply and pay for a new provisional license. Then they have to pass both the theory test and the practical test again to regain a full license. So even though revocation is not the same legal word as a court ban, the real-world impact is still brutal. Now let us look closely at the phone offense itself, because many drivers still imagine the law is narrower than it is. A critical detail is that the offense does not only apply when your car is moving normally down a road at speed. Official guidance says it still applies when you are stopped at traffic lights, queuing in traffic, or supervising a learner driver. It can also apply in a vehicle with stop-start technology that has cut the engine while stationary. So a red light is not a safe zone. A traffic jam is not a safe zone. If the phone is in your hand and you are using it while driving in those situations, you are still in danger legally. This catches many new drivers because they think, I was not really driving, I was only stopped for a second. But the law is built to close exactly that kind of excuse. The 2022 legal change made this even clearer. Before 25 March 2022, the older wording focused more on interactive communication, which left odd loopholes around some non-communication uses. After the change, holding and using a handheld device while driving became broadly prohibited, no matter why you were using it. Government explanations specifically mentioned acts like checking the time, unlocking the screen, viewing notifications, taking photos, filming, scrolling, or using apps. That means small actions are not safely invisible anymore. The law was widened to remove the classic defense of saying, I was only doing something minor. This is one reason the title of this topic feels so frightening. A person may think they are only changing a playlist, rejecting a call, or glancing at a message. But post-2022 guidance makes it clear that even those small handheld interactions can trigger the offense. There are limited exceptions, but they are much narrower than many people hope. You can call emergency services if there is a genuine emergency and it is unsafe or impractical to stop. You can use a device if you are safely parked. You can use a handheld device to make a contactless payment while the vehicle is stationary at a place like a drive-through or barrier. And there are some remote parking functions that are allowed. Hands-free use is allowed too, as long as you do not hold the device and you stay in proper control of the vehicle. That creates an important line. A mounted phone used as a sat-nav is not automatically illegal. A phone in your hand is the real legal danger zone. Even then, hands-free use is not magical protection if your driving becomes poor. Police can still act if distraction means you are no longer in proper control. Now we need to clear up one phrase that confuses a lot of people. Revocation is not the same thing as disqualification. Disqualification is usually a court-imposed ban from driving for a period of time. Revocation under the new driver rules is an administrative loss of the full license once the point threshold is reached. That legal difference matters for lawyers, but it may not feel comforting to the driver. Your full license is still gone, and you still have to go back through tests to get it back. So when social media says no court, no warning, No second chance, how accurate is that? No court is only partly true. Many phone cases are handled by fixed penalty if the driver accepts the allegation, but a driver can still dispute the matter and go to court. So court is not impossible. What is more accurate is that a court hearing is not required for revocation if the points are accepted and endorsed. No warning is also only partly true. There is no special mercy rule that gives a new driver one free pass after 6 points. But there is still an enforcement process before points land, including notice, identifying the driver, and then a penalty or court outcome. No second chance is closer to the real feeling of the rule. One endorsable 6-point offense really can wipe out a new full license. But even there, it is not a permanent life sentence. The person can apply again, get a provisional license again, and retake both tests. It is harsh, but not forever. Another huge part of this modern story is enforcement technology. The UK has been using and trialing AI-assisted camera systems designed to detect mobile phone use and seatbelt offenses. Systems marketed by companies like Accusensus have been used in roadside operations by police forces and safety partnerships. These systems use high-resolution images and automated detection to flag suspected offenses. That does not mean a robot instantly convicts you without human review. In practice, images are generally reviewed and the normal enforcement process still follows. But the practical message is still serious. Detection is becoming more likely than it used to be when drivers relied on the chance that no officer would see them. That changes behavior risk in a big way. A habit that once felt low risk may not stay low risk for long. This matters even more for new drivers because they are vulnerable in several ways at once. Their control of the vehicle is often less automatic than that of very experienced drivers. They may underestimate how much attention even a quick glance steals. They are often heavy smartphone users and may feel constant connection as normal. And many still wrongly believe a red light or crawling traffic creates a legal loophole. The law says otherwise. The safety reason behind the crackdown is not hard to understand. Official explanations cited transport statistics showing that in 2020 in Great Britain, 17 people were killed in crashes where the driver was using a mobile phone. The same source recorded 1114 seriously injured and 385 slightly injured in those crashes. Those numbers matter because phone distraction is not a harmless technical rule. It can delay reaction, hide hazards, and end lives. That is why the law was tightened rather than softened. For a new driver, the damage goes far beyond the original fine. Insurance can become far more expensive after a phone endorsement. Some insurers may be less willing to cover you at all. If you need a license for work, college, or commuting, the loss can hit your income and daily life fast. Then add the cost of a new provisional license, theory test, practical test, and more lessons if confidence drops. The economic damage can become much larger than £200. There are also practical gray areas that trap people because they believe common sense will save them. A driver may think they are safe because they only picked up the phone to move music, reject a call, or unlock the screen. But those are exactly the kinds of small handheld acts the wider 2022 rule was designed to catch. So the best prevention advice is unusually simple. Treat the rule as zero touch, not just no texting. Set navigation before you move off. Use do not disturb while driving. Keep the phone out of your hand and preferably out of reach. If you must interact with it, park safely first. And never assume a red light, traffic cue, or stop-start engine gives you legal cover. Here is a helpful mental shortcut. If the phone is in your hand, you are probably already in the legal danger zone. If the phone is mounted and untouched, you are much safer legally, though distraction can still create other offenses if your driving slips. The bigger change in the UK is that enforcement is moving away from only catching what an officer happens to see with their own eyes. High-resolution roadside systems, AI-assisted detection, and targeted operations make hidden phone use harder to hide. That means the old gamble of doing it just for a second is becoming a worse gamble every year. So what is the most accurate bottom line? The New Driver Act risk is completely real. 6 points in the first 2 years can revoke a new driver's full license. A handheld mobile phone offense can deliver those 6 points in one hit. AI-supported camera systems do exist and are being used to detect that kind of behavior. But the most dramatic online version still needs one correction. The camera is not a robotic judge, and there is still a normal enforcement process before points are imposed. What stays true, and what every new UK driver should remember, is the final consequence. One proven handheld phone offense can be enough to undo the license you worked so hard to earn. If you want another breakdown that turns scary road rules into clear, simple language, watch the next video because one honest explanation can save years of trouble. Notice how unforgiving the numbers are for a new driver. The offense and the revocation threshold line up perfectly, which means there is almost no room for a phone-related mistake. An older driver may see 6 points as painful but survivable. A new driver has to see 6 points as a cliff edge. That is why the safest mindset is not be careful with the phone. The safest mindset is never touch the phone while the vehicle is part of traffic at all. That rule feels strict, but strict is exactly what makes it easy to remember under pressure. Complicated personal exceptions are what get people into trouble at red lights and in slow queues. Another thing new drivers forget is that enforcement does not need a dramatic chase scene to become expensive. A single clear image, a fixed penalty, and accepted points can be enough to set the whole revocation process in motion. By the time a driver says, "I only touched it for 1 second," the legal damage may already be built into the evidence. That is why this issue deserves respect before the offense happens, not regret after the letter arrives. Driving safely is partly about skill, but it is also about removing temptation before temptation speaks. Silence the phone, mount it properly, set the route early, and make zero-touch behavior your automatic rule. That one habit can protect your license, your money, and other people's lives at the same time. The rule also teaches a bigger lesson about modern driving. Many risks on the road now come from habits that feel tiny in the hand but huge in their effect on attention. A glance at a screen can steal the exact second you needed to see a brake light, a child, a cyclist, or a sudden lane change. That is why lawmakers widen the offense beyond calls and messages to cover the whole pattern of handheld distraction. Once you understand that logic, the law stops looking random and starts looking like an attempt to remove a deadly blind spot. For new drivers, learning that lesson early may be one of the most valuable things they ever do behind the wheel. One simple zero-touch rule is easier to remember than a dozen excuses, and it can save a brand new license in a single moment.